It's hard to believe, but it's been 5 days of vivid imagination offered into the fluidity of creation, which swallows and burrs and shapes this divine vision. In spite of historical and sometimes current conflict and violence between science and Christianity, it is incredible how the two ways of knowing mirror and support one another. The scientific journey of evolution and the theological meaning of creation. So much time and intentionality spent on the development of a life-giving habitat. Life birthed above and below, far before the soil welcomed any citizens. It is as if all the imaginative, evolutionary investment is being made to strengthen the structure which will hold and sustain life in all forms throughout all of time. This pattern of day and night, this pronouncement of goodness, this waking with divine blueprint eager to unfold, all of these function as the architect for infinite expressions of life that will rise and return to the makings of something larger than that one life, existing in that one moment. In the cosmic calendar, human existence is represented by a tiny glint in the corner of the month of December. Preceding our entrance is 11 months and a good 29 days of cosmic creativity cued by a divine imagination, love, and concern. 13.82 billion years and counting tell a story of divine commitment to the continuation of agape, raised and returned for a theology in which regeneration finds a firm and reliable hold. This light, this darkness, this water melting and rising, this air clouded and crowded with carbon. All of this rests as a witness to the eternal evolution of love made into life through the materials possessed by creation. The gift of the scientific story to the theological narrative is that of explanatory interconnectedness. Jesus comes and teaches what science proves was in process all along, that we are not separate entities created to rule over one another with rigidity and ridicule. Jesus models behavior that science abides by, lessons taught in a myriad of contexts connected by an identical moral truth. We are inescapably connected, beyond any boundary of time, place, or life form. We are the product of divine imagination, holding steady by roots of holy love, evolving toward an experience as vast as the skies above. Science proves what Jesus holds us accountable to, that each and every ritual must serve as a reminder of this relationship of divine birth and creaturely interdependence. There is something unspeakably beautiful held in the marriage of scientific knowledge and theological meaning. This union offers something stronger than any certainty produced in its own parts, all by itself, an offering of mystery that can only be truly encountered with raw humility. It is a story in which we are late to arrive, but of no less importance. Creatures of the sea, birds of the air, welcomed us as siblings birthed by divine conception. And as adopted siblings, feathered brother and scaled sister share with us air, made room for us in this place, raised us into being in a world that was formed and familiar to their flocks. We are one day and 1,000,000 of years late to the story. And as we will learn more about next week, when we do actually enter the story, God imagines, forms, affirms, and blesses the proliferation of life manifest with wings and fins and shells and feathers in the same manner, expressed to all the land-bound creatures just one day later, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." Our blessing, to be fruitful and to multiply, is to be understood as one of creaturely inheritance and divine imagination. We are blessed because of their blessing. Standing outside of the exit of the prehistoric exhibit at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science last year, I asked the 10 youth standing circled around me to share the coolest thing they learned from the exhibit. One of the youths immediately shouted that we are made of fish scales, to which all of the other youths smiled and nodded their heads. My stomach turned a little to think of the kids running home to tell their parents how Pastor Stephanie taught them that they evolved from fish. But my own unease with parental response didn't do much to make what they had discovered any less true. Human teeth are pretty much hardened fish scales. An article written by Dr. Michael Mosley and published by the BBC News explains that the early human embryo looks very similar to the embryo of any other mammal, bird, or amphibian, all of which have evolved from fish. Your eyes start out on the sides of your head, but then move to the middle. The top flip along with the jaw and palate started life as gill-like structures on your neck. The scientific connections support the true theological connectedness that Jesus embodied. That it is our connectedness that makes us special. The connectedness is the signature of the divine, which tells a story of hope and resilience beyond all understanding. We are not unique because of any human-defined separateness or superiority. We are unique because of our expression of connectedness to all that has been before and all that will come after. We are informed and informing the creative evolution of God's expression of love as life in creation. It's curious why this revelation would be upsetting, other than that it has the potential to be unsettling, which would actually point us in the right direction if our intent was truly to follow Jesus as opposed to sustain an institution. Institutions that shelter traditions, affirming narrow stories we tell ourselves about who we are and why we are here. Here to do communion, here to sing a hymn, here to say a prayer, here to share opinion, here to lend a helping hand. And in all of our here-tos, we rarely consider that we are here to learn why we are here and what we are here to do. The uncertainty of following a countercultural crucified Christ is an impossible marketing technique, after all. 4 years ago, I walked down the stairs and out the front door of our second-story apartment to find myself unexpectedly greeted by an unusually large baby bird standing just a few feet in front of me. Unable to fly, the baby bird hopped a safe distance from me before stopping and turning around to watch me with curiosity. I was at a complete loss as to what I was supposed to do to be helpful in keeping the bird out of harm's way. So I called a few numbers that popped up under my Google search: how to save a baby bird, and how to make a baby bird clothes, and how to name your new baby bird, and how to put your baby bird in your will. Until finally a rather short-tempered woman cut me off mid-explanation to say that the bird was a kestrel, who had been pushed out of its nest by its mother to learn how to fly, but that he would be just fine. The baby's mom was close by and keeping an eye out to make sure her baby would be safe until he was strong enough to fly on his own. I think of all the harm I could have done because I had no relationship to the creature sharing space around me. The human-centric ritual of swooping in and saving without understanding and connecting that comes with kindred relationship threatened the livelihood of new life standing before me. I needed to learn why I was there and what I was there to do, even if it meant learning that the best thing I could do was leave this young falcon alone and quietly walk away. It is the mistake of assuming we know the ritual to connect before we establish the relationship to understand. In his book, Cultivating Reality, How the Soil Might Save Us, Reagan Sutterfield writes, "We act with great power, but not with great knowledge. However impressed we might be with what we know, and such ignorant arrogance is at the root of human sin. It is a practice of that is destructive to our planet, to our people, and to our purpose as beloved creatures, evolved and evolving toward divine love. The permission Jesus gives the community of faith, the people committed to following, is one of surrendering rituals to prioritize relationship, knowing the regenerative nature of the world. The question for us then becomes, can we show up faithfully without knowing why we are here? And by embracing this reality, stay committed to understanding more fully in each moment what we are here to do and who we are here to do it with. Last Sunday evening, 8 of us gathered under the Canopy Sanctuary to learn from Steve Kennedy the spiritual practice of haiku. Haiku as a spiritual practice offers a road on which we can travel to revert to the sacredness of our divine connection with all things. Haiku functions as a resting place to witness what is in the absence of what we think it ought to be. It is a creative art that requires first the ability to sit with what already is and then to repeat back the reality which shows up in the presence of a sacred welcome and witness. It is a form of radical hospitality wrapped in a ritual that reunites the strayed ego to the interconnectedness of the Christ present within all things. The Reverend Dr. Ian Ellis Jones explains that as a spiritual practice and a way of life, haiku is the creative and experiential essence of the practice of mindfulness, with all its concrete directness and immediacy. As such, haiku superbly captures the extraordinary in the ordinary, and sometimes mundane events and things of everyday life. And the writing of haiku helps to sharpen one's direct, unmediated, and uninterrupted awareness of life unfolding naturally. Please note that word, he writes, from moment to moment. From moment to moment, discipleship becomes an act of surrendering our capacity to manipulate and control toward an act of embracing the mystery of our connection and compatibility to all of creation. If it is science that offers explanation to the pace and pattern of evolution, should it not be we who offer back the divine blessing of life that has been so unexpectedly and undeservingly offered to us? That after all the life that has shifted and reshaped to permit our human form, we might also shift and reshape our human-centric rituals into fertilizer for the divine meaning around which all life was made. Imagine walking through a richly inhabited world of birch people, bear people, rock people, Robin Wall Kimmerer writes. Beings we think of and therefore speak of as persons worthy of respect, of inclusion in a peopled world. We Americans are so reluctant to learn a foreign language of our own species, let alone another species. But imagine the possibilities. Imagine the access we would have to different perspectives, the things we might see through other eyes, the wisdom that surrounds us. We don't have to figure everything out by ourselves. There are intelligences other than our own, teachers all around us. Imagine, she writes, how much less lonely we would be. Perhaps this explains the excitement shared by the kids after they discovered they were made from fish. It's a little bit weird, yes. But doesn't it also make the world feel a lot less lonely? And isn't this the reason that Jesus came to be with us? Isn't this the reason God breathed us into creation? To place us in a community of creatures, to love and to support, to show care for and concern around, and to remind ourselves from moment to moment that we are not alone. Would you pray with me? Holy Spirit, on this day of celebration, on this day in which we are called to reflect and dream about the people we are called to be according to the place we live. May you humble us into a story that is wider than any history book. May you inspire us beyond any story or vision that could be marketed or sold. May we fall into your arms. May we reach out the arms of others and be reminded and remind that we are not alone. Amen.